Well, good afternoon. We'd like to welcome you to the Voices 2007 Candidates Forum. My name is Craig Farrow, and I'm the publisher of the Voice newspaper, and I'll be your moderator for today's events. We want to take time to thank the 5 candidates for their dedication that it requires to be a candidate for the highest office in Hot Springs Village, and for taking their time to appear today to discuss the important issues that are facing us. A few things about our coverage of this event before we get started. We'll have full coverage in next week's Voice. A primary story will be available today preceding the forum on the website at hsvvoice.com. And we'll be recording the forum, and we'll have a full audio for those who couldn't make it, and that'll be on the website as well for your friends and neighbors. Now, lengthy profiles of the candidates and stories about today's forum will remain on the website under the POA candidates button on the website through April 4th until the votes are counted. Now, here's how the forum will work. We're going to dispense with the lengthy introductions of the candidates because we've published extensive stories on each one of them in the previous papers. And a few moments ago, we had a drawing to determine the candidates' seating. This is the order in which the candidates will be questioned, the order that they will ask each other questions, and the order of their closing statements. Now, as you can see, the candidates are listed by, and I'm going to go ahead and name them off so everyone can see from the back. In the position number 1, we have Martin Hanna. Position number 2, we have Bob Watson. Number 3 is Jeff Atkins. Number 4 is Terry Jackson. And all the way on the end, we have Paul Day. Now, the forum will have 3 rounds to it. In the first round, I'll ask each candidate several questions, one at a time, going from candidate 1 through candidate 5. The candidates have not seen the questions, and most of the questions came from you, our subscribers. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer, and then I'll ask our timekeeper, Lynette Melcher, here in the front row, who will turn on the green light, if we can turn that on now. Within 15 seconds remaining, she'll turn on the yellow light, and then when the 2 minutes is up, she'll turn on the red light. Now, Lynette's husband, Mel, also writes for The Voice, and he's a wrestling coach. What? I just mean he brought a whistle. If the candidate continues talking, Lynette will have the whistle, and she will use it. At the end of round 1, I'll ask all the candidates the same question, and then I'll ask them to reply with a simple yes or no, or you can decline to answer. When this round's over, we'll take a break, give them a moment to take a breather and get a drink, and then we'll begin round 2. In round 2, the candidates will question each other. The first candidate will select any other candidate and ask them a question. We've asked the candidates to not make speeches and keep their questions short and to the point. The person questioned will then have 2 minutes to answer, and then the person who initially asked the question can ask you a follow-up on the same subject, and then you'll have 1 minute to respond to that as well. We'll go around twice so the other candidate has at least the opportunity to ask 2 questions. In round 3, each candidate will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. And then finally, we've set up tables in the lobby for each candidate. We've asked them to go there after the debate so you can talk to them and continue asking questions if you feel the need. All right, I think that's it. Are you ready to begin? Let's get started. Order of operations here. First question goes to Mr. Hanna. The POA hired 4 new firemen last fall to man a new fire station on the Balearic Road. The station's new $270,000 fire truck was delivered in December, yet construction of the firehouse is months behind schedule. The POA is acting as its own contractor. Do you see a problem with this?
Yes and no. We don't have the fire protection in the location in which we'd like to have it at this point in time, and that is a fact. Yes, the construction is behind schedule. There have been a number of reasons for that. We do have the firemen on board. They have been trained, and they are working out of a different fire station, as is the pumper truck, which was displayed out here at one of the board workshops not too long ago. And it is a magnificent piece of equipment. I think you have to get a PhD to learn how to run that pumper truck. Boy, does it have lots of bells and whistles on it. It is not what we would like to have at this point in time, but the construction will continue, and been told by our Public Works Director that it should not be too much longer before the truck and the individual firemen will be operating out of that facility.
Good enough. Question number 2 is for Bob Watson. Mr. Watson, do you favor a noise control ordinance in the Saline County part of the village similar to the one in place in Garland County now?
Yes, I believe that especially as well as we have one in Garland County, that we should have a similar one in Saline County so that all of our village residents have the same rules or laws, whichever you expect, to go along with. That helps our policemen because they have 2 sets now of rules to go by. And I think that the Saline County should have the noise control as well as Garland County.
Question number 3 for Mr. Atkins. Mr. Atkins, do you favor a network of trails to let the owners of private golf carts travel between the courses in the east end of the village?
Yes.
Care to comment on why or why not?
Well, I attended 2 forums last year here. One was John Cooper. He was brief, he's direct, he was to the point. The other was the state representatives, and they took forever to answer questions. So I'm going to be brief and direct today, and yes, I favor that.
Okay, fair enough. Question number 4 will go to Ms. Jackson. Do non-resident property owners have special needs the POA should be addressing, and if so, what are they?
Yes, I believe that they do have special needs, and that was one of the reasons that Board Member Mike Mish pushed so hard for a non-resident survey this last year. Those results did come in the end of the year, and we learned an awful lot from that. Number one, we learned that there are 900 property owners that plan to relocate here in the next 5 years. That will tremendously affect our village. As far as their particular needs, the non-residents that I know, they've not spoken of any to me, so I can't really tell you the detail, although they're always concerned about the assessment rate and the amenity fees and how that affects them because they don't get to use them on a daily or weekly basis like the rest of us do.
We'll move on to Mr. Day. Mr. Day, when the Garland County Beautification Chairman recently suggested Hot Springs Village become a part of the program, he was firmly told that the village was not interested. Do you support this position?
I know that we have a group of master gardeners here in the village that have done an awful lot of work supporting the village and improving it, and I don't understand quite why Garland County would want us to work down in Hot Springs, although I know a number of the master gardeners have done that on a voluntary basis. So my view of that would be that we should keep the organization the way it is and let the master gardeners and the beautification committee work as they choose to support the projects that they think are county-wide and let them focus most of their energy on Hot Springs Village.
Now we'll go back to our first candidate. Mr. Hanna, are you concerned about the high number of property owners who are past due in paying their assessments? At the end of January, 783 property owners were more than a year past due in paying their assessments. There were 2,452 more than 60 days past due. That's more than 7% of the 34,000 property owners.
Yes, it is a concern. But however, if you will look at how the trend has been, the staff has been doing a very good job in pulling those numbers back down. They're still too high, but they are trending in the proper direction. It turns out there's a number of reasons why those really old ones are there that really nobody has much control over, and generally they're tied up in some sort of a legal basis, like a trust or something of that nature, so that it's not possible for it to be taken off of the books as expeditiously as we'd like. Yes, it is a problem. Yes, we need to keep paying attention to it, but it is going in the right direction right now.
Thank you. Mr. Watson, the Granada Golf Course cost $3.4 million to build, and the new 9 in Isabella cost $1.5 million. The $2 surcharge has paid $1 million of that $4.9 million. Yet all the construction bills have been paid. Do you think the $2 surcharges should be continued, or should the cost of each round of golf be increased by $2 and just be done with it?
Well, I definitely do not think golf should be increased in fees. We already have fees high enough, in my estimation, to take care of golf for our retirement community. The $2 surcharge, I have mixed emotions about putting or taking off, because we are, just as we are with Cortez now, we are redoing it. What's next, I understand Balboa's next in line to get refurbished. I think that we need to keep money set aside for our golf courses, the buildings, everything, to keep them in good shape as we can. So I got mixed emotions about the $2 surcharge. We need to get these paid off, but we need to keep them updated. But we don't need to be raising golf fees anymore. I think that a lot of our older residents and people that's been here some time has had all they can take with, you know, we're used to playing 2 or 3 times, and now we have a lot of people that's cut down to maybe 1 time a week on playing because of the fees we keep putting on. I think it's time to take care of what we have.
Very good. Mr. Atkins, there are some parts of the village which do not have access to cable currently. Other areas do not have AT&T's DSL service. Some areas can't get either one. How can the POA guarantee property owners receive such a service, which some say is essential to today's household needs?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if there's anything that we could do. I mean, we don't want to take over the cable service. I mean, it's a private enterprise. All we can do is encourage them to extend it to where we have houses. I mean, it's not feasible for them to extend it everywhere, and we're not going to even lay any more telephone or water or sewage that's not already there to an area that's not being built out. So I think we need to encourage the companies involved to extend it to where they can. I mean, the DSL is a very recent thing. I have high-speed cable. I love it. And I didn't have it when I first moved to the village. I had dial-up when I first moved to the village, and I was right over by Ponce Golf Course. But, you know, one day they showed up and they started digging. So I would encourage them to do it. I don't know if there's anything that we can do to force them to do it. I'm really not the type that would want to force a private company or try to force a private company to do something. But I think we can try to encourage them. Otherwise, if you want high speed, there's satellite. More expensive, but it works.
Okay, Ms. Jackson, would you favor running a 1/4-mile pipe from the east end of Lake Cortez to Lake Lago as a way of adding water to Lake Lago's reservoir in times of extreme drought, And if so, wouldn't that be more cost effective than trying to pipe water in from Lake Ouachita?
The Water and the Lakes and Water Management Committee and the POA staff have done extensive studies about what is feasible and what is not feasible. And probably it would be less expensive. The action that the board took, which I applaud them for doing, was getting on board for Lake Ouachita water in the event that we need it someday. We know that Lake Lagos will sufficiently support the village even to build out. But that doesn't mean that's for our potable water. So for recreational water, which supports our investment, watering golf courses and all of the other things that we need the recreational water for, that is not a guarantee. That does not come from Lake Lagos. And we do need to look to the future to make sure that we do have the water that we need someday. So I personally haven't seen the figures lately on the pipeline between the two. I'm sure it is less expensive than pumping it from Lake Ouachita, but we need to keep all of our options open, and I think the board was wise to at least put their foot in the water and say, if you're going to distribute water from Lake Ouachita, we want to be in on it.
Mr. Dave, a reader notes that the ongoing discussions between the POA and the Animal Welfare League. He says the POA seems focused on its animal control missions and wonders why it isn't more concerned about the overall animal welfare. It seems content to leave that to the League, he said. And to quote him, many progressive communities across the nation have abandoned this outdated thinking of merely running an animal control facility and have taken on the responsibility for animal welfare programs as well. What is your position on animal control versus animal welfare?
My view is I was very encouraged by the groups meeting together, and I think there certainly is a balance between the two. In addition to the new building that's coming, which I think will give them a lot of options that they don't have now, I was very pleased to see in the conversation some of the plans that they were suggesting, like splaying and neutering animals, like animal registration. I was also impressed with the need for a walking trail. I think that's a very good idea, so they'll be able to exercise the animals in a safe environment. I also kind of like the impoundment fee. If people outside the village are dumping their animals on us, I think that they should help pay the price. So all in all, I was pleased with the work that's being done. I think that they're getting together and communicating now, maybe not for the first time, but in a meaningful way. And I'm encouraged that we can make some real progress in this area and strike a good balance.
We'll go through one more round of questions since you've been so bright and considerate with your time. We'll start back with Mr. Hanna. Some villagers have to move away because they can no longer drive. Is there a need for some form of public transportation in the village? And if so, what would you propose?
I have not heard a hue and cry from anywhere about public transportation in the village. I'm not saying that there isn't a need. I do know that Good Sam provides service, and that is public, if you will. I don't know whether you're talking about running a bus from the east gate to the west gate or something, taxi cabs throughout the village. I don't know that there is a sufficient demand that could be a financially viable operation for anybody to undertake, much less the POA.
Mr. Watson, workmen coming into the village appear to be the source of much of the littering. What can be done about this, in your opinion?
Would you repeat that, please?
Yes. It says workmen coming into the village appear to be the source of much of the litter in the area. What can be done about this, in your opinion?
Well, a lot of this comes out of back of pickup trucks. I'm sure that we know that. A lot of it comes from our own garbage for litter pickup people. Those are put some of that down. And I know as part of the Beautification Commission before that all of this is part of the problem. But my suggestion would be that instead of letting all of the employees, and I have one myself, a card that goes through the gates, that all employees come through the front or the, should I say, the west and the east gate, instead of any gate they want to come through. And I think that would help take care of a lot of that litter, and also have part of the Beautification Commission when I was on it was trying to get law enforcement to help with litter. Get all of the people involved in litter. If I see you dumping something out, I can't do nothing about it, but I can take your name and your license number and turn it into the law enforcement, and they can call you and say, we've seen you litter, now this is a warning for you, just like that we can see. And have people, do I need to say turn in people, but when you see litter, it should be reported, and that will help take care of it.
Mr. Atkins, should any POA amenities pay for themselves?
I think so. I think we're pretty close on golf already. You asked the question earlier about the surcharge. If it's a permanent surcharge, it's part of the fee. I mean, it really is. If it's a short-term surcharge, it's a surcharge. But if you make it permanent, it's part of the fee, and we might as well just be honest with ourselves and make it part of the fee. If we don't need it, take it out. But I think golf is pretty close. I think a lot of the other facilities are doing pretty well. I don't think it should be hard set that it absolutely has to break even or make money in a certain year. It should be a goal maybe for some of our more popular amenities. But you know, some of the things are never going to break even. It's part of the village. It's part of why we pay our $32 a month. You know, the roads don't break even. We pay for those out of our assessments. So that's my position on that.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson, do you think the POA should change the way it charges for water? Now everyone is charged $24 every 2 months, plus a fee for everything over 8,000 gallons they use. One reader said she gets a penalty every month and doesn't think it's fair. What's your opinion?
I assume she gets a penalty because she goes over the maximum amount. And if you use more than what has been set up as the norm, then you should pay more for it. I don't see a problem with the way the system is set up now. That's the first time I've ever heard of anybody complaining about their water. I don't know about everybody else, but I've got the cheapest water I've ever had in my life when I moved here. So I don't know what this particular woman is doing with all of her water, but maybe she ought to rethink her water conservation.
All right, and our final question for Mr. Day. Do you think the village should be promoted as a tourist destination primarily for golf?
Say that again.
Yes, sir. Do you think the village should be promoted as a tourist destination primarily for golf?
Yes and no. Certainly Hot Springs Village is a wonderful place and has a lot of assets that we can certainly use for a tourist destination. But with the gates that we have, if you use it as a tourist destination, clearly you're going to have more people coming in and out of the gates and less control than you have now. I would much rather promote it as a retirement destination because that's what most of us are. I think that would significantly do more to help the state. With all of the retirees that are baby boomers now coming to this, to the age of retirement, we're at the point now where 20% of 79 million people are going to move someplace to retire. That's 15 million people, and that's in the next 15 years. Now, from the state's perspective, that's really good news because retirees bring 1.2 to 2.5 jobs for every family that moves to the state. And they bring new money, they create jobs, whether it's financial planners, doctors, home builders, whatever. Now, I know a lot of people here don't want our streets crowded and our golf courses crowded. But on the other hand, all the lots are already sold. And so we've got a large number of people who are going to come here anyway. The key to you, I think, is the fact that when all of us come to the point where we have to sell our houses or our heirs sell our house, we'd like to be able to make money on them, and we'd like to sell them at a profit. And clearly that would be the retirees that would be coming in that would do that. So I would put more emphasis on retirees as opposed to having Hot Springs Village become a tourist community.
Thank you. Now we're to the part of round one where I'll ask each one of you a question. You'll all get the same question, and I'm asking you for a yes or no, or you can decline to answer. And we have a few questions to go through. First one, we'll start with Mr. Hanna, and we'll work our way down. First question, do you support the letter of intent in which the POA said it would take over management of the ambulance service in the village?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely yes.
At some point, the board has agreed to take 4 proposed declaration changes to the property owners for their approval. I'm going to list them one at a time and would like a yes or no answer on whether you favor the change. First, should a supermajority of the board be allowed to increase assessments by the equal amount to an increase in the consumer price index?
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm confused. I gotta think about the question again. You did that so fast. Second question, should the board be allowed to impose fines on those who violate POA rules?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 Thank you. Third, should the board be allowed to establish a one-time buy-in fee for new property owners?
No.
No.
Absolutely no.
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 The declarations say if property owners approve an assessment increase for a special project, it has to be paid off in 1 year. The board would like to be able to propose projects that would be paid off over 2 or more years. Would you be in favor of that change?
Yes.
It depends. No. Yes.
Is that a yes, no?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And very briefly, I'd like to give you an opportunity here. If elected, what is the one thing you would like to have the board act on as soon as possible? Mr. Hanna?
I'll decline to answer that because there are more than one things that the POA needs to take action on and continue to take action on.
Fair enough. Mr. Watson?
I think that if I was to comment on this, I would say that they should take action on anything they put the money out to do when they say that it's been permitted to do. If they have it, it should be done, not put off until some other time.
Mr. Atkins?
Well, my number one priority was to stop the $1,000 buy-in fee, but that seems to be taken care of. The next thing I would do is one of the things that kind of irked me a couple of years ago was this private rider golf cart fee. You ride in a friend's cart, you pay $9. I think that's just silly. We don't pay people. We don't charge people to walk. We don't make them buy range balls. We don't make them do anything else. If they're riding in their friend's cart, we shouldn't be charging them for it.
Ms. Jackson?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I will bring that up at every meeting until I can get it passed through. I think it's silly.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson?
I agree there are many things that probably need to be looked at, but one thing that I'm really interested in is that it can't be done overnight, and it will be costly, but I think the dialogue needs to start now about the proper staffing of our fire stations. Right now we have 4 extras, but normally we have 2 at 2 stations and only 1 at another. And there are many reasons why, and I won't elaborate on that, but I think we should start the dialogue on how we are going to fund the proper staffing at our fire stations.
Thank you. Mr. Day?
I think one of the first things I would focus on is we just found out today that the governor signed the bill that allows the county to make ordinances for Hot Springs Village. So it will become law in 90 days. And I think the first thing we should do is solve the dog barking problem that has been discussed previously. And we should get that ordinance similar to the one in Garland County and make the law consistent throughout Hot Springs Village.
Thank you very much. This concludes round 1. Let's give them a round of applause. If you'd like to get up and stretch your legs, we'll take about a 2-minute recess and we'll reconvene in just a moment.